Hey, Mitch.
Oh, hey, Ed, what's up?
Oh, I'm just polishing my sword, getting ready for that Barbarian movie.
Oh, Barber. Yeah, I just came back from it. I think they did a good job. It only
No,
cost
no,
a
no, no,
dollar.
not the Barber, the Barbarian movie.
Oh, Hanna-Barbera, the Flintstones and all that. I
No, no, no,
love
the
those.
Barbarian movie.
You mean with Jane Fonda in the 60s when she was real hot and floating in space and
No,
stuff?
no, no,
Oh,
no, 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 no. I'm talking. That's Barbarella. I'm talking about Conan the Barbarian. With all the giant snakes and the camel that he punches.
wait. Nobody punched a camel.
Yeah, Conan did. Let's just start the show. Hi, this is Ed Dollister.
And this is Mitch Barbarian Halleck.
And welcome to another exciting episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. If it's your first time here, thanks so much for joining us. If you are a regular viewer, thanks for coming back. Before we begin on today's barbarous topic, how can you find out a little bit more about our show, Mitch?
Oh, Ed, it is as easy as crushing your enemies, watching them crowd down before you, and listening to the lamentations of their women. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button right on the bottom, and you will be notified when Ed and I go on another barbaric quest for whatever, treasure and something like that. And while you're there, hit the like button because Crom would like you to do that.
Crom, he would. So we are talking about the 1982 classic Conan the Barbarian, the gold standard for barbarian movies. I think it was really I'm going to say it's like the first barbarian movie, but it hit everything. Everything was perfect in that film.
Wow.
And they copied pretty much everything after that. I'm going to say
they copied The Sword and the Sorcerer, buddy.
I know.
That came out just before this. So.
It did. I know, but anyway.
I know. Okay.
Did you? Oh, hang on.
You see? You want to read your? You got to read your review.
I've got to find my review.
Okay.
You read the review. Did you see it in the movies, man?
Yes, I did. I saw in the theaters with my mom. How do you think that went over?
That would have been a bit awkward with some of those.
Well, it was rated R, and you can't go to see rated R movies when you're a kid. You had to be over 17. And as manly as I looked at 17, they weren't buying it. So my mom bought me a ticket, and she sat there with me.
Did she enjoy it?
She was upstairs, 85 years old. God bless my mother. She's still here.
Oh.
She, I don't think she remembers, but no, she didn't like, there was a lot of nudity and a lot of violence, and my mom wasn't putting up with that. So no, my mom did not like Conan the Barbarian.
Did you like Conan the Barbarian?
I liked it for the nudity and for the violence. Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Fair enough. I don't know. I never got to see it in the cinemas because I was only 12.
I know. I was going to say I was 16 years old, so I was going to an all boys Catholic school. So to go to the movie theaters and see orgies was, best thing that could happen.
That's right, a good field trip. So my first thing, I only saw Conan the Destroyer in the movies because
that's a classic piece of crap.
I actually quite like it, but anyway, we'll talk probably a little bit about that in it. Yeah. We should say, so Conan the Barbarian, you're a comics guy and a pulp guy.
Yes, I am. Go on, I have a comic of it.
No, I was going to say, what are some of the origins of Conan?
Well, you got the right guy to ask for that. As my Conan, it fell. Yeah, Conan the Barbarian, rated PG. No, Conan the Barbarian started off as a pulp hero in the 30s, written by a gentleman named Mr. Robert E. Howard down Texas way. Now, Robert Howard is a very talented writer. He had previously done a character called Kull, Kull, the year before. Now, you think I'm a mama's boy. Ain't no bigger mama's boy than Robert E. Howard. So he was writing these stories in his room under the belief that at night that the spirit of Conan stood behind him and compelled him to just type away and write these masterful stories of sword and sorcery. To say Mr. Howard was a bit delusional is an understatement. So he crafted all these Conan stories. He also did another character, I believe it's called Solomon Kane, about a Puritan devil fighting witch guy, whatever. Anyway, Conan the Barbarian, bunch of successful stories written by Robert Howard. Unfortunately, Mr. Howard kills himself at age 32 when his mother's diagnosed with tuberculosis and he can't take it anymore. And he goes and shoots himself. So if you ever want to see a great movie about his life story and his interesting world that he lived in, go see Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yes.
Vincent D'Onofrio plays Robert E. Howard in a biopic. I can't think of the name right now. Something about like the warrior or something.
I'll put it up right now.
Yeah, it's a good movie about Robert Howard because the whole town thought he was like a very wacky guy, but it's good. He's always like fighting. He's a big guy, you know.
Yep.
So anyway, these stories get published in a magazine along the same time that what's the guy that does Cthulhu? I can't think of his name.
Call of Cthulhu.
Big,
oh my,
famous writer, necromancy. Right
yes.
here. Oh my God, it's huge. Anyway,
I know. I'm blanking too.
wrong with us. So anyway, that guy. They're in a bunch of these magazines like Fantastic Adventures or something, Man's Adventures. So years later, these books, these Conan stories get published, they get reprinted, just like Doc Savage. They get owned by a company called Lancer, and they made a great bunch of paperback novels. But what really drew attention to Conan was the masterful artist Frank Frazetta. Did the H.P. Lovecraft was the guy that just came in there. Frank Frazetta did all the covers, and everybody was like foaming at the mouth when they saw these, big, huge, barbaric guys and these gorgeous, voluptuous women and scantily clad and swords and knives. It was just like a weekend at the Dollar Store house, as always. And what happened is it was huge with the men's market. They used to have like paperbacks, adventure stories and stuff. And writer over at Marvel Comics, Mr. Roy Thomas, said, hey, Stan the Man Lee, publisher, editor-in-chief at Marvel, said, why don't we start to publish a comic book based on the adventures of Conan the Barbarian? In fact, we don't really have to write them because they're already written. All we have to do is like adapt the stories into a comic book form. So they went ahead and did it. It was a much more mature storyline because of the gore and the sex and the violence, but it took off like gangbusters, so much so that there was a Conan the Barbarian comic book that I just had here in my hands. There was a Conan the Barbarian adult magazine, like that had some nudity. It was more graphic in the storytelling. It was called The Savage Sword of Conan. So it was huge. Conan was a big deal. I think they were selling it twice a month. So Hollywood looked over and said, hey, let's do something. There's a guy named Edward Pressman, and he's the producer of this movie. He's like, let's try to get this off the ground. Unfortunately, in the early 70s, they couldn't do it because there was a whole bunch of legal rights issues with who owned the rights to the movie character. And because Robert E. Howard had passed on, years ago since he killed himself. And now the paperback people said they owned it. The Lancer company, Marvel, everybody was in on it. So the movie was in development hell for years, like in 73, 74, 75. It wasn't till the end of the 70s. And there was a treatment by Roy Thomas. He's kind of a ghostwriter. He wrote the first screenplay. Oliver Stone, the famous Oliver Stone, comes into the movie with John Milius, who people might know him from Apocalypse Now. He's a friend of George Lucas and Spielberg.
They worked on Big Wednesday previously.
Yeah, the surfer movie. Exactly. Yeah. So he gets this book. He doesn't know comic books, but they used to call Milius the Barbarian because of the way he looked. He had a big beard and he was all into Vikings and stuff, and he was a surfer. So that was his nickname. So he gets involved. Oliver Stone takes that early treatment. He redoes it, but it's very fanciful. It's all got these exotic animals and mutants.
And it's set in a post-apocalyptic. It's not the Hyborean time or
whatever.
No,
it's not
like
that ancient. No. Yeah, Conan, the story takes place in a mystical time of, before the Middle Ages, before the BC. It's kind of its own thing. It's called the Hyborean Age. Like you said, it's not real, but it's a place that, magic could happen and sorcerers and all that stuff. So anyway, Oliver Stone's script is just too crazy. I mean, they're not going to make this. Too much, probably would be great for special effects, like if Ray Harryhausen had a shot at it, but they didn't have that kind of money. So Millis goes and gets Dino De Laurentiis, the big producer who we talked about before on the show, the guy that made King Kong. He made what was the
Flash
other
Gordon.
big Flash Gordon. He made Barbarella. So they go to him saying, hey, we got this comic book like character that we think would be right up your alley. So they go and pitch it to him, and he says, yeah, let's go ahead and make the movie. And then the movie starts, and I'll stop it right there so we can jump back into the review.
Yes.
Oh, Conan the Barbarian from your book from the 80s. So take it away.
All right. And it's funny, this is on the page with Concord Airport 79, a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, and of course, Condor Man. But let's have a look at Conan the Barbarian. All right, so it says, even a true barbarian would wince at this dreary sword and sorcery saga based on the comic book hero. This witless film serves as nothing more than a showcase for the magnificent muscles of Schwarzenegger, who hulks around chopping off heads and flexing his biceps until he finally triumphs over the villainous snake-worshipping Thulsa Doom Jones. The minimal dialogue is pointless in this pointless screenplay and comes off as an incoherent mumbo jumbo. 1 star.
What? 1 star? Are you kidding me? No, this was unbelievable. I remember, like I said, I saw it with my mom. I'm in the theaters, but that thing was roaring, man. I mean, the music that they had, it was almost like a Carmine Burina.
Oh, well, they wanted to do Carmen Burina until
Excalibur did.
Excalibur did it. So then, they got Basil Poledouris. I mean, one of the best things about this film, apart from the production design, by Ron Cobb, no less.
Ron Cobb, that's right.
From Alien and other,
Ridley Scott, before I mentioned John Mills, he was attached to this movie for a couple of years too. So I think that's how Ron Cobb gets involved.
So they got Basil Poledouris to do the score, and the score is absolutely fantastic. In fact,
you know it's one long score?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, I've seen him talk about the making of the film. He says from the start all the way until they do that raid on the Thulsa Doom thing, it's literally one giant piece of music. I'm like, that's crazy. But anyway.
And it's great. You've got the anvil of Crom, you've got the riddle of steel, you've got all these amazing all these amazing pieces. And if you know how they do those movies with symphony orchestras.
Yeah, right.
Why wouldn't they should if they don't do it already. This is
That's what I'm saying. It's like the John Williams Star Wars thing. There's music throughout the entire film in the background. So you could do this entire movie and have it projected up there and just listen to the music cues.
Oh my gosh. And in fact, there's not a lot of dialogue, to be honest.
No.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was off pumping iron. This is his big break. I mean, he looks he studied really. Yes.
He did a movie with our friend, the guy that made the Smokey and the Bandit movies. It was called The Villain. It's with Kirk
Douglas. with Kirk Douglas.
Yeah, Kirk Douglas. I remember this because that was honestly, I knew Pumpin' Iron came out, but in I'm gonna say 1978. And I remember watching the local talk shows like the Dinah Shore Show or Mike Douglas, and they brought on Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he was there to promote the film. What is the stuntman director's name?
Hal Needham.
Hal Needham made this movie that was literally supposed to be like a real life Warner Brothers Bugs Bunny cartoon. And it was all, like the coyote. With the
love it. It is great. It was actually in Australia. It was called Cactus Jack.
Oh, here it's called The Villain.
Yes.
And I remember Schwarzenegger was the hero, if I'm not mistaken. He wore white.
Yes.
And Kirk Douglas is the bad guy.
Yeah.
Who's running around like the Wile E. Coyote who keeps trying to stop him.
Yeah.
And Schwarzenegger didn't speak well. He still had a very thick accent, and you couldn't hear the dialogue. And I remember him being on the talk shows, and he said they were like coaching him, helping him to get through the lines and stuff. And even back then, I can't remember who the girl was. I'm going to say it was like Angie Dickinson or Anne Margaret. Might have been Anne Margaret was the heroine in that movie. It was a very pretty woman. But when they came to do this movie, they got Arnold Schwarzenegger. They pulled him aside. They said, listen, you're going to have to do a lot of acting because you're the main guy.
Mm-hmm.
But his co-stars are Max von Sydow and
Yes.
James Earl Jones, who are no stranger to good acting. So I've heard on set they kind of coached him and told him, how to deliver lines and how to, have a presence and all that stuff. So he does learn a lot in this movie that he hadn't had prior to that too. But you can't take your eyes off him. He's a giant hulk of a guy. In fact, he had to lose 30 pounds to do this movie because he was so big. He really couldn't do the fight scenes. He couldn't move the sword around because his pecs and his obliques are so big. So he came down 30 pounds just to learn how to wield the sword and stuff. And those swords, they injured a couple people on that set. Let me just tell you, they were made of fiberglass, not steel. But that'll still chop your finger off if you're not paying attention. And things like that did happen on the set of Conan the Barbarian.
Back in the day. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, as you said, he had those mentors. He's perfect for the role, and he's called it a gift, this role. It's really what put him on the map, not Cactus Jack / the villain
not the
or
villain
anything like that. He was perfect for the role, and I think he did a really good job.
He did.
He doesn't speak a lot, but that suits the character. Your experience. In fact, the whole opening of the movie, where you get to see it's sort of with that wonderful, again, that score, you're just seeing the life
snow
with
and
Conan's father,
Conan's
father, William Smith, who you see who was a stalwart of TV and movies of the 70s and 80s. And then that horrendous scene where the mother Naduska is beheaded. They actually filmed an animatronic head and everything like that. It was a lot more graphic, but they didn't put that in the final cut.
No, we talk about the final cut of this movie. It had to go through several different reviews. It was rated X, rated XXX. They were not letting this thing out until behind the scenes, Dino De Laurentiis had grease the palm. Jack Valente, he was the head of the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association. He's like, listen, guys, what do I got to do to, get this rated R? So they brought it down to rated R so they could show it to the audiences, because rated X movies back in the day were like, hardcore pornography. That was not going to happen.
Absolutely. And it was good that they did, because it was a $20 million film. It made around, reported $60 to $80 million box office. It was a hit. Even though the critics were, I'm surprised that the critics were a little bit
when you just read that, I know I'm gonna say I think Siskel and Ebert loved it, because I used to watch those guys. Those were the go-to reviewers back in the day. And I'm pretty sure they liked it. The rest of the cast, there's a lot of people in this cast too. There's Mako
as the wizard, yes,
as the wizard who's in everything, and then there's Sandahl Bergman, who was in the Bob Fosse movie. I think was it Chicago or
it was I think all that jazz, or was it Jerry Lopez as
Subotai?
Who was dubbed, ironically.
No, I know, because I've seen him on interviews. I go, that doesn't sound anything like him, and he was dubbed for the movie.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Max von
Don't forget James Earl Jones as Thulsa Doom. Creepy that look. He just has that stare.
Well, Thulsa Doom is a character from the Cull series by Robert Howard, and they plucked him and they put him in the Conan story. Now, the story was supposed to be he was from the Atlantean, Atlantis. He was like the last of the Atlanteans. There's a whole backstory, and he was the last of his kind, and that's why he could transform into the snake thing that's in the movie. A lot of that just got left on the cutting room floor. Yeah. It's in the books, but there's a reason why he has these powers, that he could almost like hypnotize you when he looks into your eyes, like the snake in Jungle Book. There's a football player in that movie who plays the henchman, the real big guy. Randall. I'm going to say Randall Jones, but I don't think that is. I thought it was Hacksaw Reynolds. But anyway, he's the big guy. Another first-time actor, but he's like 6'8", and Schwarzenegger's big, but he's only like 6'1" or so. So this guy towered over Arnold too when they had a fight.
Well, it's interesting. He and his that footballer's offsider is Sven Thorsen, and who plays Thorgrim. And you go, where do I know him from? Yep, he was pretty much in, after that, pretty much every Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
Yes.
He often doubled for him. I remember him from Captain oh my God, what was it called? And the Soldiers of the Future, not Captain
Harlock?
Digital, Captain Power, and he played Tank in Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future.
I don't know what that is.
Really? The kids' TV show that uses
Jason Stark.
CGI?
Oh, wasn't that based on a toy?
Well, it was, yeah, but he
Captain
played Tank
Power?
in that. So
No, I don't. I think I know of it, but I couldn't tell you if my life depended on it.
and
But,
I do have to say quickly, because I mentioned this earlier, that the witch. So when Conan escapes, he's got all the fur and everything like that, and he sees before he meets Subutai just outside her house, he visits this witch who they do the they do adult things
she's
together.
the succubus.
Yes.
She's
And
like hot looking, and then she turns to a wretched old hag.
exactly right. And
A lot.
I've been in a film with her and Danny Glover, the ninja. So there you go. And
I've been in situations where they turn into a wretched old hag. But anyway,
and I've got top billing above her. So Cassandra,
and I was in top billing above her too.
They. All right, let's keep it friendly. We've only got 8 minutes.
Anyway, it's rated R. It's rated R. Anyway, back to the movie. So the story is basically Conan's an orphan child. He's taken into slavery. He learns the wheel of pain, which is the same thing that you keep me on during the week. I just push this thing around and I grow up bigger and bigger. And then he wants to get vengeance for the man who killed his father and his mother.
The two snakeheads that are joined.
Yes, the riddle of steel. He gets a sword. He's going to go after with his father's sword and take down Thulsa Doom. And then he goes on misadventures. He's a thief. He's an adventurer. He gets hired to steal things and yada, 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 yada. All this swashbuckling adventure.
And we do get a great narration from Mako. It was originally going to be
12 movies. That's initially what the plan was. 12 movies. I think I cut down to 9. That's why it opens with him sitting there on the throne as an old king.
Okay, it doesn't open with that. It ends with that.
It opens up with a scroll.
It opens up with
come with me back to a time before the waters flooded Atlantis. I am
Okay, I get it. Yeah,
that's it. The movie.
But they actually filmed that
it's separate in studio.
They actually filmed that for the trailer, which
they
didn't use. Yeah.
No.
They did.
No. Okay, go ahead with your version. You tell me, and I'll tell you what my version is.
Okay. From what my understanding is, they filmed that originally for the trailer. Okay. They were going to do that. They didn't use it. Then they were going to put it at the start of the film, but they felt that it would confuse too many people. So then they put him sitting on the throne at the end of the movie with the scroll.
The story I heard was the first thing they shot was him on the throne.
They
filmed that in Shepperton Studios.
Correct.
And John Millis's plan was to do 12 Conan movies and bring Schwarzenegger back every 2 years, just like James Bond, and slowly show the progression of how he becomes the king of Aquilina by his own hand. And that's what you were basically seeing the end. And every year they were going to film it as he got closer to it. So much so that they still have hopes, even though Schwarzenegger's like knocking on 70 or he's in his 70s, they still want to try to go back and make this King Conan movie to follow. That's what happens to him in the books. In the books, Conan's the adventurer, Conan the Barbarian, Conan the swashbuckler, Conan the pirate. There's all these series of books that lead up to him becoming eventual king and getting married to Queen Zenobia. And then he has a son called Conn, Conn, which is just like Connecticut's abbreviation, by the way. Anyway, all that happens, but they never do it because, unfortunately, we're jumping ahead. Conan the Destroyer, number 2, the studios got involved and they said, hey, Raiders of the Lost Ark is real popular. Let's make it more PG and family friendly, and we'll really get all the kiddies in. And by dumbing down the barbarian aspect and the blood and the gore and the guts and the sex and the violence, they made a mediocre movie, which is still enjoyable, but it's not as good as Conan the Barbarian, and the box office reflected that.
Mako returned. Basil Poledouris returned.
Grace Jones was in it. I mean, these are
Yes.
popular people at the time. Sarah Douglas of Superman
Yes.
2 fame was in it. And
Yep.
Olivia Diabo was the
Yep.
little princess.
Yes.
And they fought this giant monster at the end who had a
With a
penis on his
horn.
head. Go
It was
whack and watch. It's penis.
Stop saying that. So essentially, it came out. It was a big hit. Yeah, the subsequent sequel, as you said, Conan the Destroyer. They sort of dumbed it down. At this point, Schwarzenegger wasn't really feeling it. It wasn't really as the series wanted to be.
Right,
He
right,
made
right.
he agreed to do a guest appearance in Red Sonja.
He
That
did.
10 was going to be a cameo, but they filmed it from him from multiple angles. His 1 week turned to 3 weeks, and he basically became a
Basically, he's playing Conan, but they don't call him
he is,
that.
but they don't call him that. No, because didn't have the rights.
They didn't have the rights to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that flopped, unfortunately, and so all the movies were scrapped. They decided they were going to do like a King Conan. That ended up being Cole the Conqueror that they
Yes,
filmed.
with
Kevin Sorbo.
Kevin
And actually,
Sorbo.
it's got I've got the score to that. It's actually got a heavy metal
Wow.
score,
Well,
which isn't too bad. And then
they
of course,
brought him back. Then they brought Conan back again. Conan in 3D, no less,
with
with
Jason
who?
Momoa.
Jason Momoa. But that bombed at the box office. But it's not that bad a movie. I've watched it. It's got parts to it, but it's like, it's all right. And even in 2015, Schwarzenegger came on and said, we're going to bring back King Conan. I heard it was going to be a Netflix project, like a series. But again, it's still in development hell. We don't know where it is. In the meantime, we forgot. They even made a Conan the
TV
Adventurer
series?
cartoon series.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
this is for kids.
They did that. They did a live action. They did a live action.
They did a
TV
live
series
action with
as
that
well.
big German guy who was like Duncan something. I can't think of his name.
Donuts.
Not Duncan Laguerre. But that lasted the year. But that wasn't. It was supposed to be like a continuation of the movie. But if you watch it, the production value, it's more like Hercules. Let's not lie about it. More like that shit. But they've tried. I mean, Conan doesn't go away. Comic book wise, it ran for Marvel into the 80s, and they had King Conan, they had the magazines. Then they lost the license. It goes over to another company called Dark Horse Comics. It ran there, and then Marvel just got the Conan Barbarian license back in 2018. They reprinted all the old stories, and they started a new continuation, new story. They just lost the rights again to another company. So I think it's bouncing all around. But let's go back to the movie real quick. There's some really cool scenes in that movie that I've never seen anything. When they crucify Conan on the tree of pain or whatever it is, and a vulture shows up. That's a real live vulture. And then he bites the head off of it when it's picking at him. That's a dead vulture, a real dead vulture. And as soon as that scene's over, they had to like put disinfectant in Schwarzenegger's mouth because they don't want him to die from like.
I thought that was a puppet.
No, it's
like
a
a
real
puppet.
vulture. No, it's a real vulture. I swear to God. I got the dead body right here. Let's bring it up right here. What other scenes are in it real cool? When they're doing
when they had I think the whole scene. Oh, the soup with the with all the that's horrendous.
And the guy takes a bite out of the hand of it. I was like,
whoa. And I mean the amazing set piece at the very end where they're basically going through with Thulsa on the stairwell, all those extras, the candles, and who can forget the serpent, the sort of heist when they're trying to steal the jewel, and they've got that giant serpent in there, which looks fantastic.
Yeah, and then at the end of the movie, he does his James Earl Jones voice. It's almost like watching the end of The Empire Strikes Back.
I am your father.
I'm your father. I'm your real father. And then he gets the axe out and hacks the head off of him.
Oh my gosh!
And throws it down the stairs. They don't really do that in Star Wars, but that was filmed in Italy,
in Spain.
I'm sorry, Spain. They were going to film it in Yugoslavia, but they were having a lot of war problems, so they didn't do that. They burned all the sets when they were done with the movie. They just destroyed everything. People are like, why didn't you leave that massive staircase?
Yeah.
Because that would have been a cool tourist attraction. But
oh my gosh, absolutely.
They destroyed all that stuff. It's too bad.
And there wasn't, as it was a rated, R film, there wasn't any merchandise really, apart from, I think they did a novelization. There was a score.
There was a novelization. I have the big green, the movie souvenir book that I tried to find before the show. There was, of course, the movie adaptation by Marvel Comics, drawn by John Buscema and written by Roy Thomas, which was just like another Conan comic, actually. I have that. I remember the poster. There's two different posters. There's a real nice poster that was in the States where it's a reddish background and Schwarzenegger standing there holding a sword. But the international market got a whole different other artwork to it with a close up of the faces of everybody.
It reminded me a bit of Luke and Leia.
Yes,
You know,
with the
from
Swiss cross. Yeah.
Yep. So there was
Italian
a little bit of that. I think they didn't obviously bring out any toys. I mean, there was a false rumor
There's
that
Conan toys later on. I think to
Yeah.
tie in with the TV show, the cartoon.
there was a
Conan the
false
Adventurer.
yeah. Now were they Remco? I'm not too sure, but
They were
the false
or
rumor that,
LGN. They were clunky.
yeah, the false rumor was that the Mattel originally were going to do the toys, and then they turned them into He-Man toys when they realized it was rated R
R.
film. That's false
Yeah.
because
Oh, that's
Master
not
Universe
true.
came out earlier, so it's all.
Oh, I
it's
had
all
heard
fine.
that story too.
Yeah, but that's
I
not
I
true.
do believe that they planned on doing a lot of toy tie-ins, but once it got the rated R, that was the end of that. So
Anyway, I will say it's a wonderful,
I like it.
gory,
amazing. I saw it on the screen a year ago. A local theater here had a double feature, Highlander and Conan. It was called the Decapitation Double Feature because hint, both those movies have heads chopped off.
Yes.
It still stands up. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
41 years later.
Yep.
It's
It's great if you get a chance to see it. In Australia, it's on Disney Plus of all things.
No,
It
really?
is. Yeah, through
Wow.
their stars, which I assume would be like maybe Hulu or whatever is
I
in the
guess,
States.
yeah. Yeah.
But it's great. It's really well worth watching.
Is the soundtrack out there? Can you buy the soundtrack?
You
You know
certainly
that.
can. Yeah, it's a killer score. I'm surprised it wasn't nominated for best score at the Academy Awards. It was really good. So have a listen to that. If you like some other Barbarian movies, we've got one that you can watch certainly on our show. How can you find out a little bit more about that, Mitch?
No, but you could check out Thunder the Barbarian. You could check
Yep.
out our Sword and the Sorcery review. You can also
Yep.
check out our Lady Hawk. We're all into the magic. Me and Ed just like put on the furry shorts and get the swords and go.
What we're wearing now.
We're doing it right now. All you got to do is subscribe to the Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure by hitting the little button below, just like if you were going to fall off a horse and get stabbed with an arrow and then have to fight these demon ghost things back and forth. That's all you got to do. Or hit the like button and say, bye, Crom. I like what you guys do. And that's going to wrap it up for today's really rushed episode of the Mitch and Ed Excellent Adventure Barbarian.
Barbarian style. That's right. We're not going for a 2.5 hour episode. Let's get it in there really quickly. Thanks for watching. This is Ed Dollister.
This is Mitch Barbarian Halleck.
And we'll see you next time.